I thought the food fight animated doo-doo classic movie was a crazy film. I thought Who Framed Roger Rabbit was a wild and insane movie. And I thought the Scooby-Doo live action was some absolutely wild roller coaster of a film. And then I watched my very first Tales from the Crypt media. Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight, a 1995 movie. And this shit is batshit fucking insane. It's balls to the wall. There's a lot going on in the plot. You got schlock and extreme violence. You got sleaziness and that classic stuff of the 80s, 70s, 90s for horror. You got a bunch of different characters all playing different tropes and stereotypes. You got a very over-the-top, very charming, suave, intimidating villain. You got these awesome practical effects and monster designs of these terrifying looking demons. And overall, despite how incohesive, as weird, and as crazy as the story of this movie is, it makes for a fun ride. I think I had a fun time with it. I think you would have a fun time with it if you enjoy those old school movies. And I really do suggest you check this out. So without further ado, let's cut to the scene. Tales from the Crypt is hitting the big screen. We're talking about Demon Knight. So for those of you who have not seen this movie, I'm going to go over a little plot synopsis without giving too much away and give my overall thoughts to it. This was a fun, insane, wild roller coaster of a movie. I have not watched the Tales from the Crypt TV show, so again, this is the very first Tales from the Crypt media that I got the chance to watch, and it was really fun. This is a fun, wild movie. They don't make movies like this. This movie is batshit insane. Balls to the wall. It's got violence, practical effects, and horny sleaziness in here that will not pass for a modern film. Modern films, they have a higher standard. They have to be more cohesive. They have to have more substance. People want this very standout story in each one. So these kind of weird offshoot movies don't really work anymore. But when you're watching it from the frame of seeing it in 1995, back during the good old days, this really is charming, and it really is a bunch of fun. And even though I wasn't born during that era, I did not see this movie back then, and I've never seen Tales from the Crypt. I can see why this embodies a lot of great aspects from the TV show, why this movie was very popular, why it did well. And yeah, man, Robert Zemeckis, I can see why, after this, they wanted to get him on, because this movie was given to some random writers, some random producers. They did a great job. And yeah, man, this is a fun time. I can see why this was made into a future franchise. So let's talk about the movie. What is Demon Knight about? So Demon Knight opens up, obviously, with the Crypt Keeper. Crypt Keeper does the opening and closing scenes of this movie. You start off with this fine-ass, beautiful woman all posted up in lingerie on the bed scene. And she apparently killed a guy. Killed a victim, apparently to get his money. She has some lover on the phone that she's talking to. And apparently she kept his corpse boiling down below in the basement in some like liquid or chemicals or whatever. And he's dissolving down there. Very gruesome, very nasty. And she decides to take a bath and relax in the glory of what she did. And all of a sudden his corpse starts rising out of that boiling pot and starts walking up the basement stairs. And it very much reminds me of like the pool zombie from Dead Man's Float and Are You Afraid of the Dark. Very disgusting, burning flesh hanging everywhere, crawling up there up to the bathroom to kill her. And right as this slasher attack scene is about to happen, the Crypt Keeper yells cut, and you realize that he's shooting a movie. He's shooting a blockbuster, and it's kind of meant to pay homage. He says that, Tales from the Crypt is now hitting the big screen. We're going Hollywood, and you're about to watch a premiere film called Demon Knight, and that's where you get into this movie. So the opening and closing scene with the Crypt Keeper, very fun, very iconic. I love it so much. It's got a lot of charm and charisma. The Crypt Keeper is a super fun introduction character. And yeah, I love that part of it. And then you get into the actual story, which involves this chase scene that's happening on the freeway. You have William Sadler, who's playing a character named Breaker. Breaker is on the run from this guy, Billy Zane, who plays a guy named the Collector. These two are in an intense chase scene. Breaker is basically running out of fuel, so his car is basically empty. He swerves and then he pulls out a lever action rifle and starts shooting at this collector guy's car until eventually it lights on fire. But the collector is unfazed, completely unfazed, just straight blank face, keeps driving, and eventually the two cars collide and create this giant Spielberg over the top explosion, classic of older movies. And Breaker manages to get out of there. Breaker gets out of there. The collector gets out of there. Breaker goes to a nearby diner and tries to break into a car and get it. However, this little boy sees him and basically tries calling out to his dad saying this guy's stealing. He runs away in a fit of desperation and then meets this local drunk homeless guy who takes him to this inn. And this inn is very dingy, very sort of shady. You have this older woman running it who they have prostitutes up there. They have felons and criminals, a lot of low-life people in there. And Breaker decides, you know what, this isn't really a good place to stay. It's very sort of odd and kind of eerie, but I have nowhere else to go. This is the safest place I can be. And you see that the collector, the guy who was chasing him in the beginning scene, he's talking to two of the local cops and deputies. He's trying to explain to him, hey, this guy is a thief. He stole this antique item from me, and I need to get this antique item back. So we got to get this guy. This guy, Breaker, is very dangerous. So we need to apprehend him at all costs and return that item. So they realize that. They realize this guy might be dangerous. He has a fake ID and stuff like that. So eventually they track him down. You get introduced to all the weird, crazy characters in the inn that Breaker's staying in. Again, the older lady. You have this prostitute in there. You have this kind of criminal felon guy named Roach. You have this the old drunk guy who's homeless. He's sort of loony, but at the heart he seems like kind of like a good guy. He also looks a lot like Robert De Niro. I don't know why, he looks a lot like him. And then you have Jada Pinkett Smith is actually in this movie, and she's playing this, I guess, like woman who got locked up in jail, and then the older lady of this inn is kind of offering her a place to stay, giving her a job so that way she stays off the streets and stays off, from getting in jail again. And Jada Pinkett Smith, amazing role here because the movie is about fighting off demons from hell, and that's what Will Smith has to deal with in a marriage with her. I'm not lying. This bitch is toxic as shit. Everybody stay away from her. She's a real life succubus. So perfect role for this movie. But that's all the characters that are in there. And eventually the collector comes in with the local cops. They find Breaker, apprehend him. He gets back his antique item, which is this golden key with this dark red liquid inside. And as it's handed back, he kind of tells the older guy who's drunk, who basically got the antique, hey, pour that out. He might have put something inside there, maybe some alcohol. Just pour it out and hand me over the key real quick. And, there's this back and forth between Breaker and the collector. Breaker saying this guy is dangerous. You cannot give him the key. He's more than meets the eye. And collector's like, all right, this guy's a felon. He's a criminal. You can't trust him. And you don't know who you really should be believing in this situation. And then things get batshit crazy. Eventually you figure out that the collector is more than meets the eye, and Breaker is as well. They're both hiding some secrets from the people, and you get this brutal kill scene involving the collector punching a hole through the head of one of the cops, and the cop's head gets stuck on his fist, so he has to try shaking it off. And it has a lot of brutal and disgusting, schlocky practical effects that are great. They are really fun to see, and that's throughout the entire movie. And you realize, the collector and Breaker have some vendetta against each other. There's more than meets the eye, and you find out the collector may or may not be a high-level demon that's actually chasing after Breaker. And Breaker may have some holy savior type object with them that is a key to defeating these kind of demons, and that's why they want to get it back. And you find out that this story may have ties to, the original biblical context of Jesus and God, and, the ideas of demons and creatures back then. So this is a very old-rooted lore within this modern story that they're doing. And, Collector reveals his hands. He summons these demonic servants to basically kill all the victims and Breaker inside of this inn. So Breaker has to find a way to defend themselves. It may or may not involve the powers invoked within this antique key. And then you basically get a stakeout of surviving the night against the Collector and these demons, while Breaker has to convince these people about what's really going on, gaining their trust, and eventually it's going to get very bloody, very violent, and very insane. The positives of this story is that, again, there's a lot of really fun schlock in there. It's very violent, has a lot of uncensored stuff that would not be okay in older movies, and hell, some of that stuff doesn't even get done in modern movies. You have a really fun, wild group of characters. Again, the main characters within the inn all play different types of stereotypes. And you find out that the Collector and Breaker are in this kind of ritual involving 7 stars, 7 demon keys, 7 victims tonight. And that may or may not relate to the 7 deadly sins. I don't know if that's what the producers or directors were aiming towards, but I think maybe there could be the possibility you can draw upon each of these 7 characters representing a different sin within the 7 deadly sins. That's not what I got, but I can assume maybe there's some ties to that. And yeah, they're very fun. Jada Pinkett Smith in here, she plays a very important role. It's kind of like a hero figure by the end of the story. And she's actually does a pretty good job. She does a pretty good job acting, delivering for her character. And this is probably one of her best movie roles that she's done, which, considering her portfolio, is not saying a lot, but she did a fine enough job here. Hopefully she doesn't deal with any more entanglements with any of the demons, because she's a demon herself IRL, so any entanglements with creatures from the abyss, you got double trouble there. So you got Jada Pinkett Smith doing a good job. William Sadler playing Breaker, he does a good job as well. He's this very sort of macho, cool, calm, mysterious figure. He does his job well. You resonate with him. You're kind of root for him a little bit. And the standout performance in this movie is 100% Billy Zane as the Collector. Billy Zane as the Collector does a fantastic job. The Collector is this very over-the-top, ambitious, kind of flamboyant demon. He has the capabilities and he has a lot of different powers of, like, if he cuts open his hand, his blood can then form portals into, assumably, the underworld and summon out these terrifying looking demons with red charred skin, glowing green eyes. They kind of remind you of the main villains from the Scooby-Doo live action movie. Those were also that reddish brown maroon color, glowing green eyes. But these are obviously more terrifying. They look like banshees and crazy looking demons. He can do mind control. He can influence people's mind, create hallucinations for them, have that sort of influence. And yeah, he's very powerful, very intimidating, but he's very fun. He has a sort of moments in this movie where he's doing these standout performances, these over-the-top hallucination scenes where he's acting very much like a Jim Carrey figure, a Carl Nav / Daniel Cash from Trilogy and Goosebumps, that sort of very charismatic, suave, funny, over-the-top villain. He does a great job with it. I think he's super fun. He offers a lot to the movie, and I really enjoyed him as a villain. He's super entertaining, and at the same time, he is genuinely threatening, and I can imagine that being, very similar to characters like the Devil. The Devil's this very sort of ominous, creepy figure, but he's sort of playing up that very sort of salesman kind of devil, kind of being over the top, trying to get people's attention, being very alluring, attractive, and stuff like that. He's not the devil figure in the movie. He's said to be like an upper level demon looking for a promotion. So assumably there's multiple collectors that go out there and try to find these keys every time they get defeated. But nonetheless, he does a great job as the main villain. The demons in this movie are terrifying. They have horrific monster designs. There's a lot of brutal practical effects involving the kill scenes. The Collector and the demons are able to possess people, and when some of these victims get possessed, they have these disgusting, horrifying transformation scenes that are, again, all done through practical effects. Specifically, the one that scarred me the most was a scene with a kid in the attic. That kid in the attic scene, his transformation scene was horrifying, and it was so good and so effective. And this movie overall is just a very fun, wild movie. But it does come with weaknesses. The weaknesses to this movie is the lore behind the religious aspects to it, the origins of God, the Genesis and stuff like that. It's sort of just thrown in there like some PTSD visions. It's hard to keep up with. I got the general consensus of what they're going for, and I understood the plot upon the first watch of what they were going for, but I can see why it's hard to keep up with for certain people. And even just as a viewer, even though I understood what was going on, I thought it was pretty lazily and just sort of go gadget random bullshit thrown in. So it's not really done in a very cohesive and well strung together way. The victim characters, the other characters aside from the ones I mentioned, the actors William Sadler, Jada Pinkett Smith, Billy Zane, the rest of them are just sort of average. They do an okay job. They're pretty much kind of forgettable, kind of like side characters. There's also a lot of absurd scenes involving them. There's a sex scene with the prostitute and Roach where one of the cops walks in on them doing it, and she's attaching electrical like cable cords to his nipples to shock him into being aroused. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Again, some wild shit happening at some Courage the Cowardly Dog middle of nowhere inn. So you got a lot of wild characters. You know, they're kind of forgettable. They're kind of average. They do an okay job. They have a few standout scenes, but they're not that great compared to, again, Jada Pinkett Smith, Billy Zane, and William Sadler. And the plot is sort of all over the place. It's got a bunch of different plot points. The powers behind the collector and the demons are not well thought out. You just have a bunch of it feels kind of like a video game that's all over the place. You just have a checkpoint after checkpoint, random shit thrown in there, cutscenes and stuff like that. It feels sort of all over the place. It doesn't have any real structure to it. So that's why I said it felt like a roller coaster. Roller coaster, you're just in for the ride. Here you have to be in for the ride because there's no real well-written story. It just is what it is. It's just mostly a fun schlock fest. But again, if you're a fan of those type of movies, I think that this one would do pretty good for you. And for me, even though sometimes schlockiness and sleaziness and stuff only goes so far, I think this one was fun enough. This one had that charm, charisma to it, and it did have a lot of good scenes in there that, you know what, I gave it a 7.8 out of 10, which is a good score. That's a good movie. Pretty good movie overall. 7.8 out of 10. So do I recommend you watch it? Yeah, I think it's a fun time. I think you're going to have a blast watching it. If you're from the 90s, the 80s, or 70s, or even the early 2000s like I am, this is all within your realm. You've watched stuff like this. It's going to bring back that nostalgia for you. And I wish Tales from the Crypt would have kept making movies like this to a certain degree, because the quality drops from here on out. I've seen Bordello of Blood, and Lord have mercy, that dropped down a couple of tiers. But this one, as the first movie, good job, man. Good job. I appreciate it. And that's all I have for this review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, if you'd like to see me review more Tales from the Crypt movies, or specific episodes from the Tales from the Crypt TV show, you let me know down below. I will review them for you and check them out. I have other adult horror content on my channel. I also have young adult and kids horror. Here at the Horror Tavern, I do all types of horror, all types of genres, all types of media. It's all down there in my playlist and channel, so go check it out. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. It's a free way to support me. Really means a lot to me if you guys hit that subscribe and like button. And we're very close to 200 subscribers, so if we surpass that, I'm gonna have a celebration video for that, maybe another Q&A or maybe something else I can do. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and deuces. Nah, no lie, bro, that old Jonah Hill looking dude that was falling in love with the prostitute, he was down bad. But I'm not gonna lie, putting electrical cords on the nipples, I'm not opposed. Might have to try that out someday.